The Tascam DR70D is my first foray into the world of portable digital audio recorders, having previously relied on plugging my Rode video mic straight into my DSLR. While this worked for a long time, I was sick of having to go into Premiere and having to apply a denoiser effect, as the Rode video mic, in conjunction with the Canon 6D's preamp, added a little bit of hiss that was kind of unacceptable for doing a video. Furthermore, I wanted to add a second microphone to my rig, a Rode Link wireless kit, and thus a single microphone input wasn't going to cut it anymore. After spending a bit of time researching the various audio recorders in this space, including the Tascam DR60D, which I decided against because it didn't have any internal microphones, as well as the Zoom H5, which only had 2 XLR inputs instead of the 4 on the Tascam 70D. So I eventually settled on the Tascam 70D and went to B&H in New York over Christmas, which by the way is the most amazing shop I've ever been into, and bought it for just $245 US, which works out to be about $330 Australian, which is a lot better in comparison to the local prices, which I found it marked at around $500. The DR70D is definitely designed to be used with support, as it makes my camera about a third heavier, not to mention how awkward it becomes to hold. However, as soon as you attach your rig to a tripod, monopod or even camera cage, the DR70D fits in nicely at just 5cm tall. It has a very low profile, obviously being designed around the idea of having it mounted underneath your camera, although you can mount it to the top of a camera if you prefer those ergonomics. The ports are on the left and right hand sides, allowing for easy access for cables connecting with the camera and microphones. Its inbuilt stereo microphones are on the front, facing the same direction as your camera would be, with the admittedly flimsy battery and SD card cover being accessed from the same location. Finally, the controls on the screen are on the back for easy operation by the cameraman. There are 2 red handles on the front providing a leap across the controls and the screen to physically prevent accidental adjusting of knobs and anything hitting the screen. The red flare is in contrast to the otherwise understated black colour scheme of the device. The top of the recorder has a 3/8" tripod screw coming out of it for attaching to the bottom of a camera. This mounting mechanism can be taken off, revealing a cold shoe mount, similar to what you'd find on the top of a DSLR, so you can attach a microphone or flash. Underneath the device is a 3/8" screw hole for attaching the recorder to a tripod or other mounting hardware. Behind this hole is another small hole for the anti-rotation pin of a release plate. This bottom is also lined with a grippy, rubbery surface to prevent the recorder from sliding around, as well as reducing scratches. With 4 XLR/TRS combo inputs, a 6.5mm stereo input, and 2 inbuilt microphones, the DR70D should have enough audio source options to cover any videographer. You have the choice through the menu to choose between the XLR/TRS combo inputs or the 6.5mm stereo input on the first 2 channels, and then the choice between the XLR/TRS combo inputs or, this time, the inbuilt stereo microphones on the last 2 channels. These channels are linked, however, meaning you can't just choose one side of the 6.5mm stereo input and then 3 XLR or TRS inputs on the other 3 channels. This was a bit annoying, as I couldn't have something plugged into the 6.5mm input, something plugged into the XLR input, and then be able to use the 2 onboard microphones all at the same time. But I overcame this by getting a Rode 6.5mm to XLR adapter. Other ports include a 6.5mm camera input for monitoring audio coming out of the camera, as well as a 6.5mm line out to help you sync up your audio with the camera later. There's an input for remote, although I don't own one so I haven't been able to test this functionality, and a micro USB port, which can be used for accessing files, updating the firmware, or even powering the recorder. Finally, a dedicated headphone port with its own physical volume dial enables for dedicated monitoring of what's being recorded. The Tascam DR70D packs a behemoth of features into a small little screen. The topmost menu has a whopping 8 options, and it only expands from there. It'd be impossible to cover every single feature and setting in this review, but I'll endeavour to cover the main points. Most adjustments are done channel by channel, although channels are linked together, so you could inadvertently change settings on a channel you weren't actually controlling. In terms of volume and gain, each channel has 3 points of adjustment. Firstly, you need to select whether your input is coming in at a line level, mic level, or mic level with phantom power. Following this, you can set whether the gain is low, mid, high, or high plus, and then finally you adjust the level via one of the 4 physical pots on the front. Speaking of phantom power, I would have liked to see a physical light indicating whether phantom power was on or not for each of the channels. In each channel you can also apply a limiter, which I've read online adds a lot of noise to your signal, a low cut filter to one of 40Hz, 80Hz, 120Hz, 180Hz or 220Hz, a delay that's referenced off channel 1, and finally phase shift. Beyond that, in record settings you can select the format, bitrate and sample rate, as well as an option called dual record, which duplicates the input of 2 of your channels but at a lower gain, enabling you to have the original audio that's loud for quiet scenarios, and then another copy that's a lot quieter if there are loud noises so they don't peak. I've been using this option extensively when I'm only shooting with 2 or 1 inputs, as it enables a much greater flexibility to deal with audio issues when I'm editing later on. Finally, if you're connecting the recorder back to your camera, you should set the output gain to be at the cam level, otherwise you can select a line level output. Menu accessibility is basic and at times tedious, although with the single dial/button approach used for selecting 99% of options, there isn't much Tascam could do to expand this. Particularly annoying was setting the time, which is something I need to do every time I change out the batteries apparently, with moving between the different time intervals requiring me to use the buttons on the opposite side of the screen, something that's not intuitive at all. Furthermore, multiple times I pressed the dial to move to the next value, as would be logical, and ended up setting the time and having to navigate back through the menu to find the time setting again to set an accurate time. A lot of the main menus could be removed, replaced with one single long page for each channel. Instead of having input gain and effects on one menu, then actual gain, panning and input source on another screen, combining these together like a traditional channel strip on a mixing desk would make sense. Furthermore, I'd like to see an easy link option which duplicates settings from each channel to its stereo pair. If the link option wasn't selected, each option would be able to control it independently, as I often find myself accidentally making changes to 2 channels at once. Another slight annoyance is when you scroll through the options and you scroll to something like phantom power, it automatically pops up with a big confirmation box. Instead, the confirmation box should only pop up after I've saved the setting, and not interrupt my flow when I'm simply looking through the available options. Aside from that, navigating the menu is pretty easy, with a simple dial, enter button and menu button being easy to pick up. One problem I have with the unit is how long it takes to turn on. You need to hold down the on button for quite a few seconds, and then once the display actually turns on, it does take another few seconds before you're actually ready to start recording. Recording with the Tascam is easy. You enable the inputs you'd like to record, and then you press the big red record button on the front of the unit. This activates a red recording light and can be stopped by either pressing the same button again or pressing the dedicated stop button. You can send a tone through all your channels by pressing the slate button, which is useful for syncing audio later, and if you press the next button while recording, it automatically starts recording to a new file, which is handy for organisation. Playback is easy. Simply hitting the play button while not recording plays the most recently recorded track back through your headphones, and you can use the forward and back buttons to skip through the different files. You can also use the data dial to skip through to different tracks. In terms of monitoring, the home page of the menu gives digital meters, which can give you an idea of how loud each channel is relative to the other channels. If the bar fills up, the audio will start to peak and the dedicated peak red LED will light up on the corresponding channel, which is a nice touch. Otherwise, the bottom right of the menu tells you the loudest decibel reading it's picked up in recent time. This screen also gives you the length of your current clip, how much longer your SD card will let you record, what effects you have currently applied, which source your headphones are monitoring, and finally a 3-step battery life indicator. I find this to be a comprehensive and useful amount of information to see on screen while I'm recording, although I know some people would like to see the exact decibel levels you've set the pots to on the front as you turn them. Battery life is quoted to be around 6 hours and 15 minutes using XLR or TRS inputs, and that halves when phantom power is turned on, if you use 4 Anyloop AA batteries like I am. Recording at the highest possible quality, a 32GB SD card gives me about 7 hours and 41 minutes of recording time. One thing to note is you don't need to get the highest speed SD cards like you would with a DSLR, as audio doesn't really record that much data per second. You can put in up to an 128GB card into the Tascam, which is over a full day of recording. The most important part of an audio recorder is of course how it sounds. If an audio recorder adds a whole bunch of noise to your recordings, then all the other amazing features are rendered useless. With that said, I'm pleased to report the DR70D is excellent in this respect, and one of the main reasons I purchased this recorder. Plugging my Rode video mic straight into the Canon 6D introduces a whole bunch of noise, which forces me to use Premiere Pro's inconsistent at best noise reduction tool to remove this. Now I can just use the audio recorded straight from the SD card. I made a video comparing these different recording methods, which you can check out in the top right corner of your screen now. Recording to WAV or broadcast WAV file formats at 96 kHz and 24 bits provides more than enough frequency content and dynamic range. And, like any good audio recorder, the DR70D doesn't colour the sound. A quick note on the inbuilt microphones, which I'm using now about 15cm from my face. They're designed to capture a stereo image of the space and capture sound from all around them, as they're omnidirectional. They're kinda like the microphone in your video camera, only slightly bigger, and there are 2 of them so you can get left and right sounds. Having used these microphones a few times, they're fine for recording ambient noise or as a reference track, but I'd no more use them than I'd use the microphone built into my camera. Use an external microphone if you can, as the microphones on this device aren't the highlight at all. The Tascam DR70D is a great option for solo videographers such as myself who are looking to improve how they record their audio. With its 4 XLR/TRS combo inputs, 6.5mm input, 2 internal microphones and really high quality preamps for all those microphones, options for audio recording are pretty much limitless. I've been using a variety of different configurations, including using just a shotgun mic, using a wireless lapel mic, using them both at the same time, or even using the internal microphones, and the DR70D allows me to do all these different things and more. Its rugged and durable design makes it great for portable, out in the field kind of recording. It easily attaches to the camera, and it gives you great monitoring options so you can both concentrate on filming and look at your audio at the same time.
While a bit pricey, especially compared to something like the Zoom H5, I'm a strong believer that a good audio recorder such as the Tascam DR70D is a great investment and will last anyone doing even semi-professional video work for a very long time.